All right, folks, buckle up. I've been sick all week. My 15-month-old gave something to me. Uh, that's just the dangers you face as a parent. The everyday petri dish battle. But we are once again entering what I would call the twilight zone of Democrat excuses. This is a fun show today, guys. I've been so looking forward to this. A cleanup hitter this week. But welcome back to the show. I'm Drew Allen, the Millennial Minister of Truth. And today we're going to dive headfirst into the latest episode of Nothing Is Ever Our Fault. And you are not going to believe this one. According to reports bubbling up, Barack Hussein Obama is now blaming his, get this, folks, he's blaming his marital problems on, who do you think? Donald Trump. Yes, you heard that right. The man who spent 8 years telling us he was going to fundamentally transform America apparently couldn't fundamentally keep his own marriage together. And the villain in the story is, surprise, surprise, Donald J. Trump. You know, I haven't lost it like this in a while, but it's just too good. There's so many victories right now with the gerrymandering, you know, the Democrats' big idea to basically steal the midterms by rewriting every map they could. And they're all being shot down. It's just beautiful. They're imploding as I sit here and speak. But think about that for a second about Barack Hussein Obama blaming his marital problems on Donald J. Trump. The guy who gave us the IRS targeting conservatives, the Benghazi cover-up, the cash pallets to Iran, the red line that disappeared, and an economy that limped along while he and Michelle jetted off on one luxury vacation after another to Hawaii and Martha's Vineyard elsewhere. Well, now he claims the real source of tension at home is Trump's tweets, Trump's rallies, or I guess Trump just existing. And this is peak Trump derangement syndrome. These people can't tie their shoes without finding a way to make it about Orange Man bad. Your marriage hitting the rocks? Must be Trump. Economy still recovering from their policies? Trump. Kids can't afford a house? Trump. The dog chewed up the couch? Definitely Trump. And this is the truth that they don't want to admit. There's a lesson in this, folks. Accountability is a foreign concept to this crowd. For 8 years, everything was Bush's fault. Then it was, I guess, was it Russia's fault? Then it was Trump's fault before he even took office. Now, years later, when the spotlight is off them, Barack Obama in particular, who's basically irrelevant, but when the private life isn't picture perfect, guess who still gets the blame? It is the same script every single time. Project, deflect, and never, ever look in the mirror. You know, meanwhile, real Americans like you that are watching right now and me, we're out here grinding, paying the bills, raising families, and we're watching this circus thinking, are you effing kidding me right now? Barack Obama isn't a leader. He has no wisdom. This is the to a T, the ultimate victim mentality wrapped in, you know, a Harvard degree and a Nobel Peace Prize that they never earned. And we'll get into the details. We'll break it all down. But I just want to be clear from the jump here. If Barack Obama can't figure out his own household, maybe, just maybe, you know, the country dodged a bullet when he finally was forced to leave office. But let's unpack the nonsense because it's too fun and too ridiculous to let slide. So Barack Obama, the so-called most elegant man to ever grace the White House, sitting in one of his multiple multi-million-dollar properties, probably staring at his own reflection in some golden mirror, and instead of taking any responsibility for whatever's gone sideways at home, he points the finger across the aisle at the guy who beat Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump ruined my marriage. Come on. This is the same guy who campaigned on hope and change, and then he delivered division and stagnation. The same man whose administration weaponized federal agencies against political opponents. The same polished, I say that with air quotes because he really wasn't a very good speaker, especially without a teleprompter, but the same polished speaker who could deliver a beautiful eulogy, but couldn't deliver border security, energy independence, or a coherent foreign policy. And now domestic bliss is somehow Trump's fault too? And the reason we're talking about this is an important lesson here. This is what happens when you spend your entire adult life surrounded by yes men. Selective crowds that adore you, a media that treated every word like it came down from Sinai. You don't have the ability to look inward. Everything becomes external. Bad poll numbers, racism. Failed policies, GOP obstruction. Marriage trouble must be those mean MAGA people and their orange leader. This isn't just embarrassing. It is so revealing. It shows the insulated, out-of-touch bubble these progressive elites live in. They vacation in exclusive enclaves. They write books that become instant bestsellers because the publisher knows they'll be pushed on every cable show. And they lecture the rest of us about sacrifice while they rack up private jet miles. And then when real life, the messy part that doesn't come with a teleprompter, when that hits them, they reach for the same tired boogeyman. Trump didn't create their problems. Trump has simply exposed how fragile their whole narrative is. Every time he spoke without a script, every time he fought back instead of folding, it reminded millions of Americans that the Emperor Obama had no clothes. And apparently that reminder is still echoing through the Obama household years later. Let me ask you this. If the most celebrated Democrat of the last generation can't hold his own family together without blaming a political rival, what does that say about the philosophy they've been selling us for decades? Personal responsibility? Not so much. Collective grievance? Absolutely. And this is why millions of regular Americans, the ones who actually work for a living, not the ones who fundraise for a living, rejected the constant continuation of that era. They wanted results, not more excuses. They wanted strength, not more finger pointing. And I want to hear from you. If you've got something to say, you can put it in the chat box, or I can see your comments, I guess, on Facebook or X. But have you ever seen a more pathetic example of never accepting blame? Or is it just par for the course with a crowd? But remember this, the truth, as has been said, doesn't care about their feelings. It doesn't care about their book deals or their Netflix contracts. The truth is very simple. Own your choices. Fix what's broken on your end and stop dragging the country into your personal therapy session. And in a second, I'll take it one step further because this isn't just a one-off excuse. See, this is the cherry on top of the fakest political fairy tale we've been sold in our lifetimes. But first, this is insane. So new research found that microplastics, yes, the same junk from bottles and packaging, lodged inside the arteries of over half the people studied. And get this, those with microplastics were 4.5 times more likely to have a heart attack or stroke. They're in your food, they're in your water, even your phone and steering wheel. And while RFK Jr. says he's cracking down, the $1.1 trillion plastics industry is not going quietly. So it is on us to protect ourselves. You can start with a few simple things. A natural drink that lowers blood pressure by 12 points, an ancient stress-lowering trick, and a Chinese dragon tea that helps even the unhealthiest among us. I don't have time to share all the details here, but there is a free report that explains it all. You can go to myprimal.life/Drew Blood. And you can see how thousands of folks are ditching meds and getting their blood pressure under control naturally. Don't wait. Thank your heart and freedom Your heart and your freedom will thank you. That's myprimal.life/Drew Blood. All right. So the Obamas, right? They're this glittering, picture perfect, hope and change power couple. Well, they've always been the most manufactured, stage managed, airbrushed illusion in modern American politics, bar none. I mean, think about it. They rolled out like a Hollywood production. The handsome, articulate senator, the strong, stylish wife, 2 cute kids, the dog, the whole Norman Rockwell meets multicultural dream. Magazines, books, Netflix deals, $60 million mansion, speeches about unity while they live like royalty. And now, years later, instead of admitting the obvious, it's still Trump's fault. I mean, this kills me. I mean, this is Clinton level fakery, maybe even worse. The Clintons at least had the decency to be openly dysfunctional. The affairs, the cigars, the blue dresses, the I did not have sexual relations lie right to our faces. Everybody knew it was a circus, but the Obamas, they sold us the premium package, didn't they? The transcendent, post-racial soulmate romance for the ages. When they go low, we go high. Give me a flippin' break. It was all curated. It was all scripted. It was all protected by a media that treated every anniversary post like gospel. Meanwhile, regular Americans watched their own marriages strained by the very economy and culture these two helped shape. You can't even have intra-political relations anymore. No Democrat will tolerate that based on the radicalization we've seen since 2016. But the whole Obama story has been fake from Jump Street. The effortless elegance, the profound partnership, the idea that they were above the pettiness of politics. Turns out it was as fragile as their foreign policy. One tough stretch, one dose of real-world consequences, and suddenly the great unifier needs a scapegoat with orange skin and a red hat. And that is what happens, Barack, when your entire brand is built on myth instead of reality. You can't handle the cracks showing. You can't just say, hey, you know, life got hard. We're human. No, you reach for the ultimate external villain because admitting the fairy tale was never real would collapse the entire empire of books and documentaries and speaking fees. And I saw through this. I bet many of you saw through this. Many American people saw through a lot of it back then. And now we're just seeing more of it now. That's why the rejection of that whole era was so total. We didn't want another polished facade. We wanted authenticity, flaws and all, from someone who actually fought for us instead of lecturing us from a pedestal that was never earned. The marital blame game is the feature of Obama's story. The fakest couple with the fakest narrative finally bumping into something they can't spin away with another TED Talk or bestseller. I mean, this, to me, folks, is just the most tone-deaf excuse that I've ever heard. And of course, you know, part of his explanation is, you know, it's because of Trump that I spend all this time away from my wife. If Trump wasn't around, I'd spend more time. No, it's because you're such a megalomaniac that you have to be the center of attention, and it's not about you anymore. Nobody cares about Barack Obama. It is all about Trump. And he can't tolerate it because he wants it to be about him so much. And, you know, so it's, you know, whose fault it is their marriage is crumbling? It's Barack's. Because he cares more about himself than his marriage. He prioritizes himself and his fame and all the fakeness over doing the work. And that's the thing. Barack Obama is one of the laziest individuals that's ever been in American politics. Amen. But speaking of the fakest stories we've been force fed in our lifetimes. I want to talk about this brand new monument to ego that just opened in Chicago. You might have heard about it, the so-called Obama Presidential Center, or as normal people are calling it, the ugliest eyesore ever inflicted on the American landscape. Folks, they dropped hundreds of millions, taxpayer money mixed with Hollywood donor cash, to build what looks like a rejected Death Star prop from a bad Star Wars movie. They plopped it right into historic Jackson Park in Chicago there. It's a concrete monstrosity if you haven't seen it. It's over budget, delayed for years. The locals have been screaming about it being a disaster. And Obama's out there hawking merch shaped like the thing. It's not a library. It's a self-worship shrine that screams, "Look how important I still am," while the entire neighborhood around it wonders why their park got turned into some brutalist tomb. But of course, the anointed one, he couldn't just cut the ribbon and walk away. No, sir. He had to sit down for a cozy little love fest interview with Stephen Colbert. Did you see this? It was taped right there inside this architectural crime scene so they could polish the halo one more time. And what does our former president do in this primetime gaslighting session? He launches straight into a lecture about the weaponization and politicization of the Justice Department. Oh, you can't have a president directing the DOJ to go after political enemies, he says with that serious professor voice. It's dangerous for democracy. The awesome power of the position shouldn't be abused like that. Are you kidding me right now? Again, this is the same Barack Obama whose administration turned the IRS loose on conservative nonprofits. He ran the Fast and Furious gun walking scandal that got Border Patrol agents killed. He spied on the Trump campaign with the phony Steele dossier and Crossfire Hurricane, and he let the intelligence community become a political hit squad. The guy who perfected weaponization is now on late night TV clutching his pearls about how terrible it is when someone else might do it. This isn't even gaslighting anymore. It's full-on alternate reality creation. The same script as always. Rewrite your own record, project every single sin onto Trump, smile for the camera, and let the Colbert audience clap like seals, while the rest of America watches in complete and total disbelief. This is the fakest couple with the fakest legacy, trying desperately to keep the fairy tale alive. Marriage on the rocks, Trump's fault. Ugly library gets roasted coast to coast. Still Trump's fault somehow. Record of government abuse. Never happened. It's the other guy who's the real danger. And this polished image, it's gone. The hope and change romance, the above it all wisdom. It was all stagecraft from day one, just like the Clintons before them, except with better lighting, I would say, and a Netflix budget. Barack Obama will never be a man who can look in the mirror. He still can't own a single failure, and he is still pathetically reaching for the exact same villain every time reality gets too close. The Obama myth is finally, in my opinion, collapsing in plain sight. But while we're on the subject of Barack Hussein Obama rewriting history from inside his multi-million-dollar concrete tribute to himself, let's segue right into the latest Democrat gerrymandering disaster that just blew up in their faces, this time in Virginia. Did y'all see this story yet? The Democrats, they thought they had it all figured out. They were going to rig the map for 2026 midterms and pad their House majority the old-fashioned way by cheating with race and raw power. And leading this charge was Virginia State Senator Louise Lucas, the powerful Senate leader and redistricting warrior. She and her machine Democrats openly bragged they were going to deliver a 10-1 Democratic gerrymander, 10 Democrat seats, one lonely Republican. They rammed through a mid-decade power grab, tried to bypass the bipartisan redistricting commission that Virginia voters approved. They pushed a special referendum, and they even trolled Republicans with T-shirts that said 10 effing 1. They're not even subtle about it, friends. I mean, this was in your face. It was arrogant. We own the process rigging. The very racial and partisan bean counting they've defended for years. But victory's sweet. So sweet. The Supreme Court of Virginia, they struck down the whole thing in a 4-3 ruling. They ruled that the Democrats violated procedural rules when they tried to override the will of the voters in the bipartisan commission. And they're gaslighting, saying the opposite. But the aggressive 10-1 Democrat power grab in Virginia, it is dead. The current maps stay in place for 2026, a 6-5 edge instead of the 4 extra seats they were trying to steal. So another Democrat scheme has been shot down by the courts. And of course, they are livid. The reaction from the left has been pure unhinged meltdown. They're screaming racism, Jim Crow 2.0. And they're claiming the sky is falling because they can no longer use race as a weapon to engineer safe blue districts. Where was this outrage when they were packing black voters into safe Democratic strongholds to protect their incumbents and maximize their seats? Back then, it was all civil rights and representation. Now that a court says you can't turn every map into a racial quota system, suddenly it's the end of democracy. Everything's the end of democracy. And this, I should add, is the exact same crowd that spent decades defending gerrymandering as long as it was their gerrymandering. The Clintons and Obamas, they perfected the fake outrage switcheroo. When they controlled the process, it was magical. When the courts put guardrails on racial sorting, it's now racist. And I mean, the timing of this is sweet. It's right after Obama lectures us on Colbert about weaponization and political norms. I mean, the same man whose administration turned redistricting into a racial political weapon for years now watches his party throw a tantrum because Virginia Supreme Court said enough. And by the way, to any Democrats out there, this isn't about suppressing votes. It is about stopping the government from sorting citizens by skin color to rig election outcomes. It's actually real equality under the law, something the fake hope and change crowd never truly delivered. And so this ruling, combined with similar smackdowns elsewhere, it's a massive game changer heading into the 2026 midterms. Fewer automatic Democrat lock boxes, more competitive districts, more opportunities for Republicans if red states move quickly. And the left, is really in full panic mode. They're calling Southern and red states Confederate again because they want colorblind maps instead of perpetual race bean counting. And these midterms, oh man, they're shaping up to be a referendum on all of it. The excuses, the myths, the double standards, and all these desperate attempts by the left to rig the game when the people won't vote for their agenda. Americans are watching, and they are so tired of the gaslighting. And I just want to tie all this together because the pattern is crystal clear, and the hysteria is reaching new heights. I mean, you've got Barack Obama, right? He's cutting the ribbon on his multi-million-dollar, modernist monstrosity in Chicago. That eyesore. It looks like it was designed by a committee to with the purpose of offending every normal person within a 5-mile radius. So then he hops on Colbert's couch to lecture us about the dangers of weaponized government. The sheer audacity, again, from the guy whose team turned the machinery of state against their opponents. And meanwhile, the Supreme Court just reminded everyone what actual constitutional guardrails look like. And Democrats loved racial redistricting when it padded their House majority, packing voters by skin color to engineer these safe seats. And now that the court says the Voting Rights Act doesn't require turning every map into a racial quota system, now it's, racist. And Gavin Newsom, I mean, I live in California, so this is, right out my back door. But, Gavin Newsom and the rest of the coastal elite crew, they're the ones calling these southern and red states Confederate states again. Like we're back in 1861 because Republicans want colorblind maps instead of perpetual racial bean counting. And this is the same Newsom who ran through his own race-tinged redistricting power grab in California to counter Texas. Now he's clutching his pearls and waving the bloody shirt at anyone who dares draw districts based on people instead of skin color. I mean, the hypocrisy is so thick, you could spread it on toast. And, their scheme is basically over. I'm just looking at some comments here real quick. Nothing intelligent to report, I must say, sadly. All right. Well, anyway. So I want to shift gears to talk about some other stuff related to California. Because something refreshingly unscripted just went down in the belly of the progressive beast, which would be Los Angeles. We got the first major LA mayoral debate Wednesday night at the Skirball Cultural Center. You had incumbent Karen Bass, that progressive darling who's presided over one of the worst crime, homelessness, and fire response disasters in city history. Well, she's facing off against DSA, Democrat Socialists of America, aligned councilwoman Nithya Raman and reality TV star Spencer Pratt. And I don't know if you've seen his videos, campaign videos. They're game-changing. But Spencer Pratt, he is the reality star, the Hills guy, the one whose own home got torched in the Palisades fire. And let me tell you, he did not show up to this debate to play nice or to read from the Democrat script. He showed up swinging. He went right after Bass, straight after Bass on the fire response, drained reservoirs, delayed warnings, the whole catastrophic failure that left families like his with nothing but ashes. He hammered the homelessness industrial complex, billions spent, tents everywhere, people choosing drugs over beds under the freeways. He called out the waste, $10 million for 26 motel units or whatever insane number it was. He was blunt. He was direct. There were no word salads. There were no excuses. It's just a guy who lost everything looking at the people responsible and saying, I've had enough. And these post-debate polls, viewers handed it to Pratt in a landslide. The guy with zero political experience walked in. He spoke like a normal, frustrated Angelino. And the establishment looked flat-footed and defensive. And this is what happens when the polished machine meets real talk. Spencer Pratt in his own way is a smaller version of Donald Trump. An outsider who can't take it anymore, who steps up to solve a problem. A once beloved reality TV star who now is attacked simply because he's not willing to prop up the corrupt machine. And Pratt is channeling the exhaustion of regular people watching their once great city turn into a dumpster fire. And it's a microcosm of the bigger fight in this country. The same crowd that protects the Obama myth, that rigs maps with race, that blames everyone but themselves, they're now watching their own backyard revolt in the unlikeliest form. A reality star with fire in his eyes and skin in his game, and skin in the game. Now, whether Pratt can actually win in deep blue LA, it's still a long shot. But he is exposing the rot. He is forcing the conversation that the champagne socialists, champagne communists, these elites, they don't want it. And that authenticity is landing harder than any focus group soundbite. I mean, the left hates it. They hate it when outsiders speak truth without permission. But Americans, even in California, well, we are starving for it. And so we'll keep an eye on this race as it heads to the June primary. It could be the spark that lights a fire under the whole failed progressive experiment. I hope so. You know, that's to be determined. I want to talk about Xavier Becerra in another race, the governor's race, in just a second, because, you know, as we're speaking about, you know, California's endless parade of progressive failures and recycle excuses, you know, Becerra is the face of that. And he apparently has this sudden rise to the top of the Democrat pile, which is so inexplicable to me. It's got, apparently the Biden administration people are befuddled because even according to them, he was such a loser when he served as the HHS secretary. But I want to tell you about TWC, the wellness company. When credible doctors start paying attention to repurposed medications, it's worth asking why. Dr. Harvey Risch, former professor of epidemiology at Yale and now serving on the president's cancer panel, he's helping lead that conversation. A new groundbreaking observational study from the wellness company analyzed the off-label use of ivermectin and, if I cannot slaughter the pronunciation, mebendazole in nearly 200 cancer patients treated by licensed doctors across cancers like breast, prostate, lung, and colon. And the results are hard to ignore. After 6 months, 84% of patients experienced clinical benefit, including stable disease, tumor regression, or no evidence of disease. This is not lab data. This is real-world patient experience. Dr. Risch, chief epidemiologist at the wellness company, called it an exciting signal deserving serious scientific investigation and more accessible, lower-cost cancer care options. And that's why the wellness company makes it easy to access an ivermectin plus mebendazole formula using medications that are FDA approved for other indications and are being studied for additional use. It is doctor prescribed. It's USA compounded, designed to support patients exploring these emerging approaches under medical guidance. Ordering is simple. It's fully digital. Just fill out a quick intake form. A licensed doctor reviews it. Your prescription ships directly to your door. Head to dailyclouthealth.com. Use code dailyclout to save up to $60 off plus free shipping. Oh, I finally got an amazing, relevant post from Rolando Morales Garderas. He says, MAGA. God bless you. God bless you, Rolando. I think I'm doing okay here. I started the show, if you're just joining, by just announcing, just giving you a warning. I've been battling this slight sickness all week. Got it from my 15-month-old daughter. But I'm going to give you an update on this governor's race as my voice holds up. So after Eric Swalwell's campaign went up in flames faster than a California hillside, Who steps in to vacuum up the remnants? Well, it's good old Xavier Becerra. He's the former California AG. He's Biden's HHS secretary. He's the guy who brags about and did sue Trump more than 100 times just for existing. Maybe he can help Barack Hussein Obama on his marital problems. But Becerra has shot up in the polls. He's pulling double digits. He's consolidating the machine Democrat vote. And suddenly he's acting like he's the fresh face who's going to save the Golden State. It's amazing because he's been one of the worst performers in the debates. But this is the same Xavier Becerra who helped oversee the absolute disaster at Health and Human Services under Biden. Well, now he's back home, and he's promising to build, protect, and lead California while the state drowns in homelessness, crime, sky-high taxes, and businesses fleeing to red states like it's an exodus. And he's running on the same tired script: more government, more equity, more fighting Trump, single payer, effectively, dreams. And progressives, interestingly, are already turning on him. They are dredging up his, record at HHS, losing track of 85,000 children. He was so bad during, Biden's, COVID stuff that he was sidelined. And, I just want to tie this back into the LA mayoral debate that we just talked about. While Spencer Pratt is out there telling the truth about fire failures, about what's happening in California, the fraud, the same statewide machine. I mean, they are elevating Becerra, who is another polished insider who will keep the grift going. The same crowd that cheers Obama's gaslighting, that screams Confederate states about fair maps, that defends racial gerrymandering. They now want you to believe that Becerra's surge means California's turning a corner. And it doesn't. What it means is the establishment is circling the wagons. They're hoping another loyal foot soldier can keep the failed experiment alive long enough to blame someone else in 2027, 2028, whatever. But, there is something happening in California, and it's a perfect storm. You've got Obama's fading myths. You've got Newsom's term limit. He's term limited. You've got a lineup of Democrats promising more of the same medicine that poisoned the patient. Regular Californians, we're dealing with $7 gas, $3,000 rents, needles on the sidewalks. Californians are watching. They're waking up. And so, these midterms and these state races, they're going to tell us a lot. But before we finish up here on this Friday, I want to talk about this stench of Democrat accountability or lack of accountability that's hitting right in the heart of Virginia. So just yesterday, or 2 days ago now, I guess, the FBI raided the office of State Senator Louise Lucas. I mentioned her earlier in relation to the gerrymandering, but she's the powerful Democrat Senate leader, the redistricting warrior, and this has to do with her cannabis shop. So multiple locations, boxes hauled out, corruption probe that involves bribery allegations and shady marijuana business dealings. So this is the same Louise Lucas who helped ram through those race-heavy maps that the Supreme Court, state Supreme Court just smacked down, and the SCOTUS itself. So now her own world is getting turned over by federal agents. Now, obviously, she's already crying political retaliation and intimidation. I mean, never mind that the investigation reportedly kicked off under the Biden administration, but it's a classic move. When the heat comes, blame Trump, blame the system, blame anything except the mirror, except yourself. And this is a pattern, I would suggest. Look at Ilhan Omar up in Minnesota, dodging deadlines, stonewalling on documents tied to the massive Feeding Our Future child nutrition fraud scandal. Hundreds of millions in taxpayer dollars supposedly feeding kids during COVID, instead lining pockets. And Omar's office allegedly had connections, emails, and sponsorships that greased the wheels. She's ghosting hearings while the state tries to get answers. The same old story. Not to mention her little fake winery not far from where I live that somehow went from like worth nothing to 30 million. But you tie all this together with Eric Swalwell's spectacular flameout, multiple sexual assault allegations from staffers. He's been forced out of Congress, and his California governor bid. And then in the parade of other recent Democrat ethics nightmares, campaign finance messes, fraud schemes, the whole rotting underbelly that the media barely touches. This is the party of Obama gaslighting from his ugly Chicago temple, okay? This is the party of Newsom calling red states Confederate, Becerra rising on the same failed promises, and now fresh FBI raids and fraud probes. The fakest couple, the fakest legacy, surrounded by the same culture of excuses, of grift and deflection we saw with the Clintons. And so we're watching all this heading into the midterms. Racial gerrymandering exposed. Insiders circling the wagons. More scandals they hope we'll forget. And so it's not debatable whether this Democrat rot and government rot exists. It's whether voters are finally going to clean house in 2026. But my take on these, midterm elections is that it is not looking good for Democrats anymore. And I saw that they call him Timu Obama, like the cheap version. Hakeem Jeffries, he's out there making threats over what happened in Virginia because their scheme is up in flames. It's been called out, rejected, and they're desperate, and so they issue threats. This isn't over, he says. This isn't over. But boy, ladies and gentlemen, I want it to be over, don't you? I want the Democrat Party to be over. I want to deal with some party that has some flaws and disagreements about, some economic issues or decisions, but I want us to be on the same train, the American train. That we can agree on objective facts and truth again. Because right now we can't with the Democrat Party. I mean, this book behind me, Clinton Hoax, Obama Coup, The Declassified Story of the Trump-Russia Delusion, that's my latest book that exposes Obama's role in Trump-Russia collusion. It lays out the definitive case of what they did. And this book should be required reading for everyone in Congress and people in the government because we need accountability. And this book makes it clear what happened. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. But anyway, look, I'm sorry it took me until Friday to get behind the microphone. It was a busy week indeed, but we are here cleaning up at the end of the week. And Mother's Day is upon us. So husbands out there, kids, it is, take the time. This isn't Valentine's Day, all right? I mean, you should honor the mothers, and wives in our lives, mothers of our children, our own mothers, every day. But I would encourage you to make a concerted effort to really, really help your mom or your wife understand how much you appreciate motherhood and value motherhood. Mothers are the backbone of a high-functioning country. We need mothers more than anything else. And I know that I'm lucky and blessed to have my wife, mother of my two young girls, and I plan to shower her with love and praise this weekend and make sure she understands how grateful I am for her sacrifices, because there is no harder role than being a mother. That's just the facts. All right, folks, this is Drew Allen, your Millennial Minister of Truth. God bless you all. I hope you have a tremendous weekend, and I will talk to you next week.